Welcome back to the Call in Our Shop podcast. I'm Austin. I'm joined by Logan. We're here to talk about what we normally do. Every single ever-changing sports events. We're going to cover it all in this episode. It's the weekly podcast every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. We appreciate you guys for listening. If you want to go down below and download the podcast so you don't have to be watching the video on YouTube, we appreciate that as well. But Logan, first off, how are you doing? We got a lot to cover today. I mean, we have a lot on our list. Deshaun Watson was traded, Davante Adams, Freddie, Freeman. We're going to break down the whole AL. It's a lot to go down, but first off, how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing great. And, it's pretty much been the theme of each week, even though we're in the offseason of the NFL and maybe the kind of like the lull of the NBA and baseball not even starting up. We have so many topics to cover. And that's probably, every week I look forward to it because I'm always like, look how much news went down in just 1 week since our last recording. I'm really excited. How are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, amen to that. I mean, it's kind of crazy how many, the really NBA and I guess hockey, which we don't follow hockey a whole lot. Those are like the only two sports in season, but yet we're half the whole podcast. We're not really talking about either of those two sports. So it's kind of ironic, but we're still going to be talking about everything that we can talk about. There's a ton of different things happening each and every day. And there might even be something that happens after this podcast goes live that we aren't even going to cover because we're recording this at 7 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday, but it will go live on Wednesday. But again, we have to say we appreciate all the people out there that are supporting the channel. We can't do without you guys. Shout out to all our COS All-Stars, the real MVPs of the channel. We can't do without all of you. So thank you guys again for supporting the channel. If you want to support us, click the join button on the channel or the link in the description. Also, if you guys can click that like button, click that subscribe button too. Thank you guys again. We're closing in on 29,000 subscribers, but it's good to be alive. It is good to be alive.
We're recording this. How close are we to like 30,000? Let's just say a big milestone.
We're about 15. We're less than 1,500 away. So, we could hit that in a day. Who says no, but either way, we got a lot to go down. We have the MLB season starting in 2 weeks from tomorrow. So that's exciting. And I'll be doing a little bit of recon, a little bit of research. I'm going to the Orioles Red Sox game on Thursday. So I'm going to be looking at that, I'll get out my binoculars, have my radar gun. I'll be all set up, so we'll be really killing it. But we'll talk about MLB in a second. Let's first talk about probably the biggest news of the weekend in the NFL. Deshaun Watson traded the Browns, and we talked about this last week. We didn't really want to talk a whole lot about this trade because we were like, this trade's probably going to happen by the time we get to next week's podcast. But you were a Panthers fan. You're like, maybe we'll get him. And then the Panthers were giving the boot. He got the Run CMC shirt on, and then it came down to Falcons or the Saints. And then, nope, not so fast. He goes to the Browns, and boy, do I not blame him because of the contract they gave him. I think the first ever fully guaranteed deal, like $230 million. Deshaun Watson could be suspended or he could just retire now. And I regardless, what was your initial thoughts on this deal? Because I was a little busy, and then I saw the news, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, well, first of all, it really bummed me out that Carolina was out of the running pretty quickly. And then I saw, as you kind of broke it down, the two leading contenders were both NFC South opponents. And I'm like, gosh, don't make me have to face Deshaun Watson twice a year. Like, this is going to really suck. But you know what? I'm wearing this Run CMC shirt because, one, Carolina didn't make a boneheaded mistake and give up the rest of their franchise for Deshaun Watson. Christian McCaffrey, you're safe, buddy. Come back to us next year. And number two, he didn't go to those two teams. Out of nowhere, the Cleveland Browns scooped him up. And I really like the move and the fit, honestly, for Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. Like, if you look at where he was going to maybe end up with the Atlanta Falcons are in a big limbo period, right? Especially missing Calvin Ridley. What's the direction of that team? It's young. It's pretty much in a rebuild. And the New Orleans Saints without Sean Payton, that team's a lot different, and it's more enticing to me if Sean Payton's there. But no, now they're riding Jameis Winston. So good luck to them. So it really was going to Cleveland, which is pretty much a ready-made team in a division that shouldn't be, unwinnable. You've obviously got the Bengals, who had an amazing year, but aren't they due regression? And then you got the Ravens, the Steelers. I'm counting them out because you got Mitch Trubisky. Steelers fans are grab the keyboard. No, I'm just kidding. But no, realistically, this is a great fit for Deshaun Watson. I'm really excited for him, and hope he puts up good numbers next year.
I agree with you. I think if you were to look at it from like a football perspective, I think this is the best fit for him to maybe win a Super Bowl. You are right. I think it would have went Browns and Saints, I think, are pretty close in terms of like their defense, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just I like him on the Browns a little bit more. Although you could make an argument in the Saints and being in the NFC, it's a little bit of a weaker conference. But you never really know. And you kind of made the point. I think they are right at that top of that division. We don't really know what the Ravens will look like. I mean, Lamar Jackson was banged up a lot last year, and they kind of had a letdown year. The Bengals 100% do some regression. We both love the Bengals, love them long term, but I mean, if you were to say they were going to go to back-to-back Super Bowls, you'd kind of sound like a lunatic, I think, even though, they just made the Super Bowl, but still was a very unpredictable run. Then obviously the Steelers, I might have to buy me a Trubisky jersey. I don't know.
Oh, well. I don't know. Hold off on that. You'll find him on the clearance rack in a month or two after the season when he's cut. So that's fine.
Okay, there's no need for that. But I want to, and the title of the podcast, because we've already kind of thought of it, is are the Browns Super Bowl contenders? And I want to hear your answer.
To me, absolutely. You outlined their defense, right? Their defense is good enough. They kept them in a lot of games. And now you get the ultimate upgrade. Look, Deshaun Watson can come in there and he could be rusty. He could really show some signs of rust. He could be a little bit of a distraction. But you know what? He ain't Baker Mayfield. He's not the terrible, immobile Baker Mayfield. Look, Baker Mayfield was one of those quarterbacks, and yeah, I was pretty hard on him last year. I'm not saying I could do a better job at the position than Baker Mayfield. Not like let's not. I hate when people engage in hyperbole like that. But he looks so slow. He was missing throws left and right. He's just not. He's the quarterback that Cleveland knew couldn't take them to where they needed to get to. So they upgrade at the most important position in football. And you know what? He's surrounded by a good offensive line, a two-headed running back tandem, three heads if you want to count all of them. But, I mean, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are amazing. And then you got it Amari Cooper. I mean, this team is ready to win now. It's as good of a shot as even the Bengals from last year, out of nowhere.
Yeah, I want to disagree with you. I was hoping you'd say no, but I really do like this roster. I mean, they have a lot of talent on there. And we think about the Rams, and maybe we could talk about Von Miller signing with the Bills. All these teams are looking for a closer, a guy that you can get up on a lead, and then you can have them kind of close the game and go ahead and get after the quarterback. Well, it's hard to beat Myles Garrett coming around the edge. I mean, you don't want to see that guy in the fourth quarter with a full head of steam coming your way. My only concern with this team is I would like to see them maybe address some more wide receiver depth. Now, Amari Cooper's great, but we know he's sometimes banged up. He does gut through a lot of games, but you don't want an 70 to 80% Amari Cooper out there. That's not going to be great. And I look at their depth chart. Donovan Peoples-Jones did have a good year last year. Got to give him some credit. Hollywood Higgins is gone. I think he went to a much better, superior franchise.
Yeah, Carolina Panthers.
But they got Jakeem Grant, who's just kind of, that gadgety kind of guy that can just stretch the floor or top off the defense. But we've seen Deshaun Watson do much more with far less kind of weapons. We've seen him kind of succeed with Will Fuller, and that's basically it. And so I really like this team. He's not going to be – when we think about the Deshaun – I mean, we haven't seen Deshaun Watson play football in over a year. But we think about what his time with the Texans was. He never really had a run game. He never had an offensive line. It was basically hike it and please go make a play. And he was doing it time and time again. But finally, with a very good offensive line, one of the best in the league, obviously that three-headed attack at the running back, they're so deep they could afford an injury or so. But still, although we don't want them to get injured, I'm excited for this team. And I'm sure Browns fans were a little bit down probably for a couple weeks with Baker Mayfield's drama and all this hoot and hollering, but I'm curious what they do with Baker Mayfield now, because if they could trade him for some picks, I don't, truthfully, I don't know what you trade Baker for. I really don't. He still is, the number one overall pick, but after what he's shown, it's like, he's definitely, you're getting cents on the dollar of what he was worth maybe pre last year, but still, I just don't know. Maybe they can use that to get some picks and bolster up the wide receiver core. I'm not really sure.
If I were them, I mean, he's not doing you any good on the bench. I mean, he's too high profile of a backup quarterback. He's too young, technically. So to me, it's really ship him off to a team that has a little bit of a quarterback carousel. Hey, you know what? The Carolina Panthers were rumored in the running for Baker Mayfield, and he wanted to go there. And then I saw reports that the Panthers said, no, just kidding. We don't want you. So that's good news. I would come on here pretty depressed if we got Baker Mayfield, but maybe go into a situation like, I don't know, the Seahawks who have a glaring need at quarterback, maybe, some of those teams where he can just go and compete for that starting job, it's not going to be in Houston or in Houston. It's not going to be in Cleveland, where they just gave up so much to get him and have a guaranteed contract. So hopefully they ship him off for something usable. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I could see that. That Seahawks being a potential. I don't know if I would actually see it happening, but I think it has potential. I mean, I try to look at the other teams. I would have said the Washington Commanders, but then they went and traded for Carson Wentz. And looking at the other teams, like the Detroit Lions aren't going to do it for Jared Goff. The Buccaneers could be an interesting one if they wanted to try to have Tom Brady mentor him for a little bit. But like I said, I don't think he wants to be a backup QB. The Falcons obviously just traded for Marcus Mariota, so that's a little interesting.
Could you see him on the Giants? I don't know. I could see
yeah.
I mean, you got Daniel. The thing with the Giants is, like, this is the evaluation year for Daniel Jones. I mean, like, you've got, I don't know. I could see them bringing in Baker Mayfield because causing the ultimate distraction. What about, I mean, a team like, what's weird is, like, why, when they made that trade and that transaction, was Baker not shipped to the Texans? I'm just asking that. Like,
I just think they wanted to stick to Davis Mills and let it ride. Long neck Davis.
Mean, that's fine, but I think it tells you the ultimate, like, I don't know, it's the ultimate chip on your shoulder for Baker Mayfield. That usually when a team's making a trade like that, it's like, at least they want maybe a quarterback in return, a usable piece. But a lot of teams probably don't. Yeah, a lot of teams are like, Baker, you're not a usable piece. So I mean, look. The NFL is good because you usually get, if you're as high a round pick as he was, you usually do get a second chance. So where's it going to be, and can he capitalize on it?
That's I could see it's a little bit different from like a Mitchell Trubisky kind of thing, because he still has obviously I think a year or so whatever on his deal. Mitch Trubisky was let go, and he was just a free agent, and he could choose his destination. Obviously, ended up with the Bills, and then now getting a second chance with the Steelers. But looking at a lot of the teams, I have all the teams pulled up on my right. There's really not a lot of glaring teams that are like, well, this team could use him. Like, every team has kind of addressed their situation besides the Seahawks and the Panthers. Panthers obviously set out. And then you got teams like the Giants, obviously still going to test out Daniel Jones. Like the Jets, you could say, sure, but they're not going to give up on Zach Wilson after 1 year. So it's very weird. I'm not sure what to happen with him, but I do know Deshaun Watson's going to need some wide receivers. And boy, would it have been nice if he had got this one, as Davante Adams was traded to the Las Vegas Raiders, reuniting with his college quarterback, Derek Carr. This was a bomb dropped in the NFL media, and I did not expect this at all. I know there was reports that Davante Adams wanted to not play on whatever contract he had, I think on the franchise tag this season, and we all kind of assumed, well, maybe Davante Adams will sign a new deal. No one expected Rodgers to sign back and then see his best target get let out of there. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden he's gone. And now you got Aaron Rodgers sitting there with Randall Cobb as his wide receiver one, and Allen Lazard and all those guys. But Davante Adams, I'm excited for this one. I'm curious exactly how this pans out for like fantasy football and things like that. Because now you got obviously Davante Adams, you got Darren Waller, and then the GOAT Hunter Renfrow. But I'm excited for it because we saw Davante Adams really become, a great prospect because of Derek Carr at Fresno State. Like, those guys had great connections, and it was cool to see. There's been some not leaked, but people going back to look at interviews of Davante Adams hanging out with Derek Carr and talking about him like a couple years back. And they obviously have a great friendship, and he even talked about him being one of his better friends. So I think this is going to be a seamless fit. I'm excited for the Raiders, excited for Josh McDaniels to get his kind of, we know this Raiders offense was kind of sporadic last year, but with Josh McDaniels, a great offensive coordinator now as their head coach, this team, we're gonna rank the AL West in a second. But first, I want to hear your thoughts on this trade.
You had a Freudian slip. You said AL West, AFC West, no. But yeah, I mean,
I'm just so excited for baseball, man. I just can't.
He's got baseball in his mind. It's too close. I love it. But no, yeah, this was one of those like bombshells, right? Like it was so weird for me, and I didn't really understand it. How you bring him back, Aaron Rodgers, and we talked about chips to the table, as the Rams did, and kind of like just let it ride, and then you ship off his favorite target, and somebody who he has undeniable chemistry with, right?
Yeah,
it's going to be really interesting. Yeah, I know. Really, Davante Adams is one of the best receivers in the league because of his chemistry with a great quarterback. So it's going to be interesting. There's two storylines to follow here. One, can Aaron Rodgers this is really going to test Aaron Rodgers, because if he can somehow with the Alan Lazard and the Marquez Valdez Scantlings of the world, if he can bring that team to another NFC championship, with this sort of adversity, I mean, he'll get his respect. And then second one is, can Derek Carr, be elite, right? Like, can you just drop in Davante Adams and he have the same type of chemistry as he had with Aaron Rodgers? I'm really curious to see that, because what's the identity of this Las Vegas team? Is it just going to be air assault? I mean, probably, right? Josh Jacobs can't seem to stay healthy most of the time, so it's like they're not a run first team. But at the same time, do you want Derek Carr as your quarterback? Dropping back 40 times a game. I don't really want that. So it's going to be an interesting, fit. That's kind of what my thoughts initially were.
Yeah, I can get where you're coming from, because I think if we were to see Davante Adams get traded, that as a fantasy asset or as like a NFL talent, this is a really good fit, given it's his old college quarterback. But it is going to be different, because I don't know if I necessarily want Derek Carr dropping back, 40 plus times a game, just like the other 3 teams in his division will be doing pretty often, except for the Broncos. They probably won't do much drop back, but still, I'm excited for him. I don't want to be, overly optimistic, like saying this team's going to be so good, win 12 games. I don't know about that, but they're going to be one of the more fun teams to watch, and this whole division is going to be fun to watch. But I'm excited to see Davante Adams kind of in a change of scenery. It's going to take a little getting used to. It's just because of all, we've always seen him in the Green Bay colors and the uniform, but hey, it's going to be fun to see. This is what's fun about the NFL. You can always see players like this kind of moving around, and normally you don't see wide receiver ones, the best of their position, move too often. So this is a very unusual scene in the NFL, and you're right. It's going to take a lot from Aaron Rodgers to kind of corral the group, but I have a feeling that's not going to be the wide receiving group he's going to trot into the season with. I imagine they try to get some other veterans and maybe some guys in the draft, but still, Aaron Rodgers, you got your work cut out for you, because there goes 15 to 20 touchdowns that you relied on, and you didn't have to drop a play. You just looked at him, right, and then a touchdown. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. Does Odell to the Packers make too much sense? Like, am I just looking at that and saying, that to me kind of seems like a drop it in kind of thing. I don't know, right? Like,
I feel like they were recruiting him hard when he was released by the Browns, and then he obviously chose the Rams. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what Odell does. I don't imagine he goes there. It's interesting. I mean, I would think he's going to stay, but I don't really know, because they obviously just dealt away Robert Woods to the Titans, and we could talk about that a little bit. I love Bobby Trees. We'll see how that. I think that could be a pretty cool fit, because obviously they traded for Julio Jones last year, and obviously Julio played like one game. Not really. He played more than that, but he was so in and out of the lineup, you could never get chemistry. And you got a guy like Robert Woods, who normally prior to this season didn't miss many games. Obviously tore his ACL in like week 5 or something like that. So an interesting trade, but I don't know. I don't know what to do.
You got Allen Robinson. You got Allen Robinson to the Rams too. So
yeah. So they got obviously Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson, and then does OBJ want to be 3?
I don't
third
think
wheel.
So.
I don't know.
That's why I'm saying, like, knowing Odell's ego and track record, he wants to be the guy. And honestly, he would have an opportunity in Green Bay to pretty much be the guy, because no slight on Lazard or Valdez Scantling, but they're not. Neither of them are wide receiver ones. They're great, role players. A few targets here and there, but. That's the biggest need. Do they address that in the draft? I don't know. The Packers historically don't really like to address that in the draft. Just go draft another Jordan Love. See how that plays out, right?
Yeah, this is fair. But let's end off this talk about the AFC West, and let's rank the teams. And so I want to hear who do you have at the first? Who do you think finishes first in the division?
Yeah, I mean, look.
We obviously have the Chiefs, the Broncos, the Chargers, and the Raiders. I personally think the Chiefs will still finish 1. I just think they're too talented, but I can see the case for some other teams.
Yeah, I don't want to be boring. I could be boring and say the Chiefs. I'm gonna try to make a case for. I want to make a case for the Broncos, and here's why. Like, I actually do think it's between the Chiefs or the Broncos. I am discounting the Chargers. I just don't know. Like, on paper, they're so good, and they have, to me, heaping expectations. So, football teams that you look at them on paper, and you're so excited for their season outlook. They don't always pan out. It's historic. It's always those expectations. A lot of young guys, right? So. I really do like the proven nature of Russell Wilson. I like that defense. Like, if you're going to, playing Mile High, they're not gonna ask Russell Wilson to be his miraculous 2014 2015 self. They're asking him to go and pound the rock with Javonte Williams, a young talent, and just be a pretty much solid quarterback that keeps them in games. And I think that's what they're going to do. I think the Broncos are going to win a lot of those close games that past, Drew Lock and whatever rotating quarterback carousel they had. Yeah, and Teddy Two Gloves. Those types of quarterbacks couldn't close the deal. Like the Broncos were in several games. I don't have the statistics on me right now, but if you're telling me they get one of the most clutch quarterbacks, I mean, call it what you want. Russell Wilson is one of the most clutch quarterbacks in a ready-made situation to win. I do like the Broncos. Well, maybe they don't win the division outright, but they'll be there. That's what I'm saying. I think it's between the Chiefs or Broncos for the AFC West.
No, I like it. If I'm going to do my rankings, this is what I'm going to do. And this might be a little bold. I'm going to go Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders, and I'm going to put the Chargers as last. Now, I know, and just like you said, I love the Chargers. I love Herbert. I love Austin Eckler, great first name. Love Mike Williams. But you're right. Sometimes these teams that put together all this talent, they just don't end up panning out too well. And I hope I'm wrong because I love watching the Chargers. I mean, they go for 4th and 1s on their own 15-yard line. Like, they don't care. But I just don't know. I just feel like the Chargers are that team that gets their hopes up so high and then just always just absolutely gets crushed to earth. And so, by being last in the division, well, you might be a hard time making the playoffs, but I still think they'll have a good record. But I don't know. I like the other teams a little bit more. But I mean, saying this now, I'm kind of talking myself out of it but I'll put the Chargers last just as a bold prediction.
I think, look, I can see. I don't know. I think that the Raiders are last because the Raiders talk about close games. The Raiders won a lot of close games to me last year that they shouldn't have won, or they did catch lightning in a bottle at the end of the season. If you're asking for that sort of magic to kind of duplicate itself, I don't know. Look. I mean, I'm not a Derek Carr fan. I'm not sold on him. Right. I love him as a guy, as a locker room presence, but I just don't think, when the lights shine the brightest, if he's going head-to-head in a duel with Patrick Mahomes, or even, let's say, Russell Wilson's lighting it up a little bit, because Russell Wilson's still alive for all that. I just don't think Derek Carr is in a position to succeed like he wants. And that Raiders defense, it was good at times. It was also bad at times. And so I definitely think the Raiders are probably the back of the pack. I think it was pretty easy for me to weed them out. Chargers are good on paper. Let's see how it gels, right? Let's see how adding Khalil Mack, J.C. Jackson, let's see how those big defensive free agents pan out, because it takes time. Believe it or not, guys, everyone isn't just Tom Brady, drop him into the Bucs and they win a Super Bowl, right? It takes time for these teams to gel a little bit. So
yeah, I guess I'm looking more so at, I really like the Josh McDaniels hire. I don't know why. Maybe I don't know. I just really think it's a really good hire, very underrated one that I just don't think a lot of people are thinking about. I know we had a rough stint with the Broncos earlier on in his career, and then he went to obviously under Bill Belichick for a while. I don't know. I think he's going to bring something to that Raiders team that gives them a little bit of pizzazz, and maybe they jump up the rankings, or they stink and they lose those close games that they won last year. But we'll move on from the AFC West. Our final topic before we get into the MLB. Matt Ryan was traded to the Colts. Now, obviously, we saw the Baker Mayfield kind of drama and whatnot, what was going on with him. We were obviously thinking, we weren't sure where all the QB dominoes were going to fall. And once Deshaun Watson fell and the Falcons were starting to move on from Matt Ryan, he gets traded to the Indianapolis Colts. And does this move the needle for you?
Oddly enough, it kind of does, because Matt Ryan, look, he didn't have a whole lot to work with last year. And I kind of felt bad for him. Look, I kind of, as a Panthers fan, I can't root for Matt Ryan, right? He's a division rival. But now I really do. I can step back and look at it, from just an even point of view and say, is Matt Ryan gonna take the Colts to where they need to go? Absolutely, right? He's not a mobile quarterback, right? In this day and age, that's definitely a big box that he doesn't check, unfortunately. But he's obviously a proven winner. Don't talk about the Super Bowl collapse, but I mean, he's what Carson Wentz wasn't, right? He's that steady type of quarterback that doesn't lose football games. I think this is a great addition for the Colts.
Yeah, I could go either way on this one. I could see the pros to Matt Ryan. He's a guy that's, normally pretty conservative with the ball. He'll get the ball where he needs to go. but I still don't think this really moves the needle a whole lot for the Colts. And I'm not saying this team's trash. I think this team is a playoff team. We're going to be very close to it, but I'm just not too sold on it. Matt Ryan does have a chip on his shoulder. He does have things to prove. Maybe after that Super Bowl collapse, he is an NFL MVP for all we're talking about. But I think his mobility and not being able to extend plays will be a little bit tough for this Colts team. And I need them to get some more wide receivers. I love Michael Pittman Jr. I don't know if T.Y. Hilton is back or whatnot, but they really got to address the wide receiver room. Maybe try to go out and sign a veteran or something like. I'm just not sold 100% on that wide receiver room. And while they don't need to throw the ball, maybe some games they'll just run it into the ground with Jonathan Taylor. And so I'll root for him, but I'm just not sold on Matt Ryan necessarily being, that drop it in. All right, you win the division kind of thing. Cause I still do think the Titans are a very good kind of opponent. Now, obviously they're going to be 1-2, the Jags and the Texans.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. Like the margin for error, they've got a pretty decent margin for error because, you are facing off with two divisional opponents that you would like to say should be guaranteed wins. Carson Wentz.
I mean, if he can beat them in Jacksonville, Matt Ryan will be crowned the savior.
Yeah, Carson Wentz didn't get the memo about being clutch in Jacksonville. But I mean, really, realistically, it was funny how your counter argument to the Colts was, oh, well, they still have Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, they've got Jonathan Taylor. And you know what? His name was tossed in that MVP ring last year for a good part because he was just carrying this team on their back. Their identity isn't a pass heavy air raid offense. This is a ground and pound punch in the mouth kind of team. And I love their offensive line. Like their offensive line is probably going to be able to mask Matt Ryan's inability to scramble and extend plays, right? In Atlanta, he had a pretty up and down offensive line, and he was getting put on his butt a lot of times. So they're not asking him to go, win them a lot of games. At least I hope not. And is he a premium over Carson Wentz? Answer yes. And can he be better than the other side of the division, Ryan Tannehill? Yes.
Yeah, it's definitely not outside of the question. They could win the division, and I wouldn't be surprised. I think this team is going to rely a little too heavily on Jonathan Taylor than they should, because they're, I think, a Jonathan Taylor injury away from being very, very bad.
Well,
but what do I know?
Hey, look, the Carolina Panthers were a CMC injury away, and hey, I don't need to tell you how that story ends. So they ran him into
for the record, I'm super excited for Matt Ryan as someone that grew up outside of Atlanta. I loved watching his career with the Falcons, kind of rooted for him, sort of. And so I was happy for him. I know he definitely didn't want to be in the Falcons during a rebuild. So props to him for giving the organization, 15 plus years of really good, solid quarterback play. Obviously, he did win an NFL MVP award, took him to the Super Bowl. There wasn't really much more Matt Ryan could do in Atlanta. So now he gets to go to the Colts and, gets to be that Phillip Rivers kind of like QB that we saw 2 years ago. And he took them to the playoffs and had to run for their money in their first playoff game. So happy for Matt Ryan. But let's switch over. MLB, baby. We're going to the MLB. We're only, like I said, 2 weeks and a day away from the MLB opening day. And we're going to start with one of the biggest storylines that happened. We talked about it last week. Freddie Freeman signs with the Dodgers. And, man, the rich get richer. And Freddie Freeman got a bag. But it's not like he really – I don't think he did this for the money. It seemed like he just wanted to go home, as the Braves were offering him, I believe, the same amount of money. But what do we do here? Because the Dodgers, their lineup already was stacked, and now they get one of the best first basemen in the league.
The Dodgers really annoy me a lot. They annoy me a lot because they're just so damn stacked on paper. They don't have any, like if you look at their hitting, they don't have a weakness. They can hit any type of pitcher day or night. They're so damn stacked. And to see Freddie Freeman, I've already seen pictures of him in that Dodger blue. It doesn't look right? There's a lot of Braves fans out there that wasn't sleep seeing Freddie Freeman in that Dodger blue. So it's one of those uncomfortable moves that this is what annoys me a little bit about baseball, how there's a certain number of teams that just pay endless payrolls. And the Dodgers are one of those. They identify a key person and they're just like, yeah, it doesn't matter what they want. We'll pay it. So that's what they do. They have endless money.
Yeah, I don't really have any further to add. The rich really just get richer, and they're going to be they're the World Series favorites for a reason. I didn't check to see if their odds changed. They were plus 600. Can't imagine it necessarily changed too much. They don't really put more than that on. I got plus 550 now to be exact, of course.
That's funny.
Yeah, there's not much really more I can add. Freddie Freeman, obviously, I said I grew up outside of Atlanta, so I kind of have a soft spot for the Braves. And at least the Braves got a good replacement for him. but it's Freddie Freeman. The Braves fans are going to be sick and just sick when we see Freddie Freeman come into Atlanta with a Dodgers uniform on. That's just that's going to be bad. But Freddie Freeman's great, and so obviously we'll be probably betting on the Dodgers a good amount. Although they're going to be, I am curious. Out of 162 games, I would bet the Dodgers are favored in 150 plus of them. Right? You'd think
that's usually how it was. Like I remember last year. It was a really weird statistic. I think I'm not sure that they won or covered a single game that they weren't favored in. It was only like, I want to say 4 or 5. Don't quote me on that. It was a ridiculously low number. But I mean, seeing the Dodgers at juiced on a juiced run line at juiced odds, it's just what they are. That's why, when you're betting baseball, it's kind of talking gambling on this. The Dodgers never really have value to me. They're one of those teams that they just look so juicy, and it's like that. I don't know. It's just like a dessert, and you're just like, you want to go up to the dessert bar, and you're looking at it, and then you have regret on your way home because you ate too much of it. I had regret every single time I picked the Dodgers because I'm like, I don't know why I did that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I can totally understand. I'm looking at team rankings right now. This does include the postseason. I don't know if they were maybe an underdog against the Giants, one of those games, but I'm seeing 3 games out of 171 or 72 that they played.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I imagine they're going to be favored in a good amount. I bet you if they aren't favored, we need to make it a mission to bet against them. So if they're not favored, there's obviously a reason because this team is absolutely stacked out the wazoo. Yeah. But we'll talk about the Dodgers a little bit more next week when we cover the National League. Today, the rest of the episode, we're talking about the American League. We're going to break down each of the divisions, kind of talk about each of the, who we think is going to finish first, finish last, and maybe a little bit about each team. And we're going to start in the AL East, and I need to get my prop out. The Baltimore Orioles. Yeah, baby. Woo! Yeah. Man, we are going to be, look, I'm a big O's guy. As the people that might not know, we're big Ryan Mountcastle fans here. He's been on the podcast before. I can link the podcast down below if you want to go listen to our talk with Ryan. And we'll see. As I said, I'm going to see the game on Thursday, so I'll be going to scout Ryan, see how he's looking, see how the form's looking. And, man, I think they might finish first.
Okay. You're making us lose all credibility by saying something like that. You have a straight face.
Yeah.
Look.
Okay, I gotta come clean. The Orioles are going to finish last in this division. If they don't, Ryan deserves MVP.
Okay, now that's more fair on that because
and that's not biased.
No, it's not biased, and it's slightly realistic. I mean, we're obviously big Ryan Mountcastle homers, no denying that one bit. But if you're looking at how the Orioles can possibly not finish last, it's going to be offense. They're going to have to score 7-8 runs a game, and it's going to have to be some Ryan Mountcastle home runs, like straight up. They're not hitting from the bottom half of their order. It's going to be the top half. It's going to be where Ryan is, and it's big yikes to their pitching though, which did they kind of address? I think they got Zach Davies from the Cubs. I want to say, don't quote me on that. But I think they did get him, maybe addressing a little bit of the pitching, but their pitching is just far lacking in that division. So, I mean, if what we're doing division by division, let's talk about who's, finished first and who finishes last. You said blasphemous that the Orioles were going to finish first, but realistically, this to me is screaming Blue Jays. Go watch last week's episode and hear why the million reasons why I think the Blue Jays are going to win. But I mean, it really comes down to their hitting, and I think they finally have the pitching what it takes. And the Orioles, I'm sorry boys, the pitching still is lacking behind. They're still not there yet.
Yeah, they'll be there. They'll be there soon. They're just trust the process. Just a build around Ryan Mountcastle, and you'll be fine. But we talked about this last week, and you picked the Blue Jays. Obviously, I was all in on the Rays, so I'm going to have to support them here. The Rays just find ways to win games. Now, I love the Yankees as a Yankees fan. I don't have a Yankees pennant behind me, but I do normally root for them. I'd love to see the Yankees there. But the Yankees always they have a lot of talent, and then they just absolutely just don't show up to that talent. They're like 500 at the All-Star break, and they just stink. So I like the Rays to come back and win this one, but I think those top 4 teams are going to be kind of battling back and forth.
Yeah, I just don't think the Yankees have – I don't think they have the pitching. Like I'm going to be quite honest. I just don't think that if you're relying on if you're relying on Judge and Stanton to not be strikeouts every night, and you're relying on the pitching to be solid and hold down the fort, like they just don't have the winning blueprint that to me, like if it's going to be, if this division's going to come down to two teams, I'm going to be honest, I think it's going to be Red Sox or Blue Jays. I am discounting your Rays a little bit, and I know everybody loves to sleep on the Tampa Bay Rays, and all they do is win. But I think the Red Sox. Yeah, I know that we'll play this back when the Rays are in the ALCS. But I mean, realistically, the Red Sox have the hitting, they have the pitching, they have the blueprint to be there at the end of the day. Yeah, a little bit, I have a few questions like can Evaldi be good? Can he take the next step? There's the Red Sox bullpen really though is the key, because that bullpen lost some a ridiculous amount of games. If you guys remember my trend last year, I'd always bet the Red Sox first 5, because after 5, they were a guaranteed lose the lead kind of team. So what you going to do there?
Yeah, there's a lot of talent in this division. Obviously, the Red Sox just going out and signing Trevor Story, which
exactly.
you didn't really talk about.
I forgot about that.
The Red Sox got a lot of talent. Chris Sale, I think, his health is going to be vital. I don't necessarily know his health at the moment. I know he's injured. He's injured at the moment, per usual, but I like the Blue Jays call too, man. I saw Vlad Jr. losing some weight. I saw some pics of him, and he's looking good. So
he is.
I can support both of those picks. I think I think we agree Orioles are going to be last, unfortunately. I mean, they're over under for wins is 62.5, which I think is like 10 fewer than every other team. And I do think Brian Mountcastle has a good sophomore campaign, and I'll be seeing him on Thursday, and we'll try to get him on the podcast within the next 2 weeks before the season starts. Maybe we can see if we can pull a couple strings.
That would be awesome.
We've talked enough about this division. If you want to go hear us talk about the Rays and Blue Jays a little bit more, go listen to last week's podcast. But let's move on to the AL Central. Talking the White Sox, the Guardians, the Tigers, the Royals, and the Twins. And I want to hear your thought process on this one, and then you can give me who you think is going to finish first and last.
Mm-hmm. This is one of those divisions that I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to be tuning in to watch a lot of these divisional games, because I don't really you can't interest me in Tigers, Twins, or Royals baseball. Sorry. I'm not a fan of any of those teams. So, but realistically, it's the White Sox. The White Sox have a lot of expectations coming off of what they did last year. Losing to the Astros was disappointing in the fashion that it kind of happened. They've got the pitching, right? That's a big box to check. And they definitely have the hitting. It's led by Tim Anderson. Tim Anderson, you'll definitely hear Logan talking about Tim Anderson, because he's really the engine that drives this team. And when he's hitting, the whole lineup's hitting, and they're putting up runs at a crazy pace. So it starts with the White Sox, and this division ends with the Kansas City Royals. I think the Royals are due a bad year. I mean, just looking at their team, I mean, I'm pulling it up. This site's a little bit old, so it's a projected lineup, from Bleacher Report. But I mean, looking at the pitching, Kowar, Lynch, Keller, Bubich, like, are any of these pitchers the type of pitcher to make? Yeah. Everyone remembers when I was picking Chris Bubich just for his funny name last year. But I mean, is any of those pitchers really, pitchers that inspire you, that say this is going to lead us out of last place of the division? I mean, it's really, to me, it's going to be between the Royals and the Twins, in last place. But I mean, they got Soler, Yuli Gurriel. I mean, those are some solid pickups, I guess, for the Royals. But look, I think the Tigers are going to be much improved. I always, talked about how pitiful the Detroit Tigers have been. But you know what? This is a team, a little bit of question marks at pitching. But I mean, they got Javi Baez. They've got the defense. If they're going to win games, 2-1 type ugly games. So the Tigers might surprise a few teams. Guardians, it's that same kind of pitching defensive MO. So that's the story.
Yeah, the Tigers got rid of Urania too, so that's a massive W.
Trash can.
But I agree with you 100%. White Sox should be, the team that comes out of this and wins this division pretty easily. I mean, the projections for over, under, and win totals does show that the White Sox are the highest by like 8 or 9 wins in this division. If I like the Royals pick, but to be a little bit different, I'm not a big fan of the Twins roster. I don't love it. I think you could make a case for, honestly, any of the bottom 3 teams, the Tigers, Royals, Twins, either of them to finish last. And while I like the Royals call, the Twins haven't done a whole lot to address their offseason. I mean, they got Sonny Gray, but I've never been a big Sonny Gray fan. It always seems like, Sonny Gray has this one good, like a no-hitter, and then the rest of his games are absolutely trash. And then he's like, I threw a no-hitter. Don't you remember that kind of thing? Yeah. It's like, dude, we need a little bit more consistency. Obviously, they traded for Gary Sanchez. I'm not a big fan of him. And obviously, they did sign Carlos Correa, so got to give them some credit there. They got him. Max Kepler, solid too. Miguel Sano is obviously a beast. Just not too sold on this roster, and I think they'll do a little bit of regression. They did finish last in the division last year, but these three teams, I mean, White Sox had 93 wins, and the rest of the division had 80. 77 was the Tigers, Royals 74, and then the Twins 73. Wouldn't be surprising if we see kind of similar splits this year.
Yeah, I mean, I do kind of like what the Twins did a little bit, though. Like those are some moves that are going to keep them, at least their offense interesting, right? The Twins are one of those didn't really address defense, didn't really address pitching. They're gonna have to win through hitting. I mean,
the hitting is great. I think they can put up runs. I just don't know if they can necessarily, pitch their way out of games or into games and what it may be. So obviously I think they got a ton of talent. We'll maybe pick some overs for their games because I think they could put up, I remember them playing the Yankees and the final scores were like 13-11. It was just ridiculous. Neither team could pitch. And you just take the over every time they played. So maybe we'll take some overs when the season comes on. And I guess as a reminder, some people do ask us, what we're going to do for baseball season. We're going to have a daily video every single day, just complete side tangent. A daily video every day with our favorite picks, probably have player props, money lines, over-unders, whatever it may be. Very similar to this format, like 10 minutes long. But yeah, I'm going to pick the Twins in this one. Just a gut call, but they could be very good. Right. They could be improved. They made some acquisitions. We'll just see if the acquisitions actually pan out.
Yeah, look, we'll see what happens there. I'm interested.
But you're right. We're not watching a lot of those games. Let's move on to the final division, the AL West. We got the Astros, the Angels, the Athletics, the Mariners, and the Rangers. I'm going to start this one off. I think pretty easily. I lean towards the Astros to lead this division. I just think they're the most complete team. They have the best pitching, and I think they really are the most complete team. I think the other four teams all have their question marks, and so. Like, everyone wants to say the Angels will be back because they'll have Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. Sure. Congrats. You got both those two guys. And I think they got Thor. They got Noah Syndergaard on the team too now. But I'm just not sold on that roster. But if I had to pick a team that's going to finish in last, I'm going to pick the Mariners. And it's a total gut call. I just don't like their pitching that much. Now, I know they got Robbie Ray. What did he win? The Cy Young last year? I think Robbie Ray was a little bit in disguise in that Blue Jays offense. It was like, Robbie Ray, if you go stink it up, we got Vladdy to carry your back. And I don't think he's got Vladdy on this Mariners roster. I just don't see the Mariners putting up a ton of runs. They weren't the greatest hitting team last year. I just don't see where their offense is coming from. So I know they got Jesse Winker and other guys in the offseason, but no, I think Robbie Ray's due a down year. I think we could see him maybe I'm forgetting his name, but I'm not sold on this roster. That's not sold on the pitching staff. Logan Gilbert, second-year guy. Love the first name. But he was not very good last year. Chris Flexen, I'm a Chris Flexen homer. I like to pick his over in strikeouts, but just not sold on him. I'm not sold on this Mariners roster. What's your thoughts?
Okay, it's not a bold take to say the Astros should win this division. Astros offense last year, I got really tired of saying it, but they were always first in hits, first in runs, first in walks drawn, and they first in not striking out. Like, this team doesn't really have any weaknesses. The only reason they didn't win the World Series is because the Braves just came on at the right time and their pitching was better. So, hats off to the Braves. The Astros were right there. They're going to be right there again. So enough about the Astros. I think the clear last place team in this division is a team that's just been kind of losing players left and right. That's the Athletics. I'm not really, sold. They just keep shipping out talent and they're not really replacing it. I don't think they had a lot of talent to begin with. That's the thing. Like the A's pitching was always, to me, about middle of the pack, right? It was good enough to keep them in games. But whenever the A's won, it was always like a walk-off home run. It was just something like stupidly unpredictable. So take that away from losing all that talent, I think the A's are due a massive regression. I don't really like your Mariners disrespect here, because I think this team is going to be a sneaky pain in the Astros side, because they're going to play the Astros a ton, being in the division, but they got the pitching, right? You mentioned Robbie Ray, and look, man, grunting Robbie Ray. If you've never watched some baseball, tune into a Robbie Ray game and you'll be like, what the heck is this? Because every time he throws a pitch, he tries to throw it as hard as humanly possible, I swear, and he grunts in the process of doing it. But hitters did figure out Robbie Ray to the end of the season, right? I think he won the award because of how he kind of did his first half of the year was definitely better than his second half. So I think if Robbie Ray can channel some of his better moments with the Blue Jays, they'll be all right. But they've definitely got the hitting to do it. I think though it's going to come down to Astros versus Mariners, and maybe I am interested to see what the Rangers and all their offseason signings, right? You know, you could pull it up. It's a laundry list, but they made a lot of moves and they needed to, because the Rangers were pitiful last year, but they're not scared to spend money. So they'll be interesting. And yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, maybe I was a little bit hard on the Mariners, but I just wanted to roast Robbie Ray for a little bit, but either way, I think the Mariners were one of the better teams at covering against the spread of the run line last year. They were a very good team at that. And we'll see. I mean, it remains to be seen how the Rangers will do. I mean, I'm going to root for the Angels, but I don't know about that. And you're right. If I had to, a team that just shipped away all their talent going purely young would be that Athletics call. So don't hate either of those picks. I think all of them have a reason, and we're going to see. I mean, there's 162 games in the season, so there's going to be a lot of figuring out. I don't expect teams that start off super hot to end the season super hot. I mean, that's just how the MLB goes. It's a game of runs, and if you can get hot at the right time, like the Braves did last year, you probably could win the World Series, just like we've seen in the past couple seasons.
162 games. Are you ready for the fatigue, for the burnout? Because look, baseball's not for the weak, but we're gonna have so much fun in this channel. I can't wait for it. So close.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's crazy. We got 2 weeks. You've been on a little bit of a layover for a little while, so you gotta get ready for. I've been doing the daily NBA videos, but you're going to get back to the grind.
Yeah, my family's asking, where are you still on the channel? Like, does Austin, did you and Austin have a falling out, like anything? And I'm like, no, baseball's just not in season. Don't worry, guys. You'll see enough of my face come April 7th. So
it's going to be exciting. We're excited for MLB to be starting in almost 2 weeks to the day. If someone is at the Orioles versus Red Sox game on Thursday, feel free to hit a brother up. I will be there in attendance. You'll hear a guy cheering on Ryan every time he goes up to bat.
You better be
Ryan
so
hits a home
loud.
run.
Yeah, you better be so loud for Ryan. You better be obnoxious. Straight up.
Speaking of Ryan, I need to fix my bobblehead.
Yeah,
that's a big yikes. If anyone doesn't know, I have a Ryan Mountcastle bobblehead. If you want to see it, go to the first MLB video of last season. And I had a bobblehead, and then I ended up breaking its bat, and then Ryan stunk throughout the rest of the season. And, I'll go get it for real quick.
In the meantime, this is a perfect opportunity for, if you're not a COS All-Star, maybe we'll ship some autographed Ryan Mountcastle pictures. Just saying.
Don't tease the people.
Yeah, we love Ryan so much on this channel. It's gonna get quite annoying for the homerism, but I mean, you better fix this thing, bobblehead.
Yeah, so I broke the bat a while back. Bat is still broken. I don't know where that is. Actually, it's over there. But his head has been removed from the bobblehead.
Oh my god!
So this is going to be something that needs to be addressed. It wasn't in rage. It just, I accidentally hit him on a table and he fell, and this is what happened. His arms fell off too. The arms are back on. So we're moving up in the world. Still do need to fix this. I did send a picture to Ryan, and he said his neck hurt as soon as I sent it. So
it's a voodoo doll.
Hey, it is. I need to get that fixed before the season starts. Probably should get it fixed now while he still can get into form. But Ryan, I'll see you on Thursday. I appreciate everyone for tuning into the weekly podcast. Do you have anything else you want to share with the people before we get out of here?
No, I'm excited.
I appreciate you guys all for being all the COS All-Stars out there. This is our weekly podcast at 10 a.m. Eastern time every Wednesday. We got our weekly live stream tonight, which is March 23rd, on Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Definitely come show out to it. We would appreciate it. Click that like button if you listened all the way this far. And if you want to answer in the comments who you got winning the World Series, we'd appreciate your guys' look. If you pick the Dodgers, you're getting blocked. Not really, but we appreciate you guys for tuning into the live stream or to the weekly podcast. We'll be back again next week. Drop your questions down below. Let's have a great one. We'll catch you guys later. Peace.